Morning. How's everyone doing this morning? I see you're all morning people like me. Hi to the people at the back here for the continuing professional development credits. It's nice to see you, and I hope you get lots of spreadsheets done. I haven't seen so many spreadsheets open at a conference before. You know, you see different things at different conferences. Those of you who are planning to get online and do some background research and all that, it's a double-edged sword. I want you to know, you might find the session a bit more entertaining, maybe. But your IQ is going to drop by about 15 points during that time. So if you're planning on retaining much, you might want to think twice. But if you are committed to living a double life and want to be there on Twitter all the time, it's David Rock 101, and excellent is spelled EXCELLENT. Anyway, people hear about my bio often and wonder what's my strange accent. And for better or worse, I am originally Australian. Although I live full-time in New York City, so we can all have some big arguments later about sport. But I love living in New York. It's a great city. It's a wonderful part of the world, although it is as crazy as you can imagine. But being originally Australian, I'm actually learned a little bit about the financial planning industry in South Africa, funnily enough. And there was a big migration when I grew up. There was a big migration of South Africans to where I grew up in Sydney. And I can remember many times sitting at dinner with my parents, and the family friends would come over. And one particular time, the father took me aside. I think I was a young teen. He took me aside and said, come over here. I want to tell you a little bit about money and investing in the world. I said, sure, okay. And he took me aside, and he actually literally did open his shoe and show me the diamonds in there. And I thought, that's an interesting financial planning theory. But anyway, I discovered that it really was true, and I think the industry's moved on a little bit since then, which is clearly entirely not funny to you whatsoever, but it was very funny to me in my head when I thought about it. Obviously, we should test these things better. I'm sorry to tell you, I'm not here to tell you where to find more high net worth individuals or how to get a higher trailing commission or anything like that. I'm not here for any technical financial things. I'm here to help you understand something that maybe you don't know you're trying to do, but most of you are in the game of trying to influence people. Would you agree with that? You are trying to influence people a lot. You've got varying degrees of difficulty. There's the really incredibly difficult challenge, the toughest challenge of all. I'm not talking about influencing your boss. It's actually influencing your kids, which is really the master challenge, the black belt. You're trying to influence your staff, if you have staff. You're trying to influence your colleagues. You're trying to influence your clients, probably most of all. What I want to share with you today is the research coming out about the neuroscience of really you replace the word leadership really with influence, the neuroscience of getting people to do what you want them to do, of creating change around you. That's really what it's about. So some of this is organizational. If you don't work in a larger organization, it's certainly really relevant to just the people that you're trying to influence around you. So the brain, why are we talking about the brain first thing on a Wednesday morning? Why are we talking about the brain? Why does the brain matter? And I think, we have to recognize that work now is thinking work. People are thinking for a living. And if we're not thinking, we're just trying to influence other people's thinking. That's the world, okay? We're not so much, doing physical tasks or even process tasks. We're doing thinking tasks. And all of this happens in the brain, and in some respects, to not think about the brain is kind of it's almost immoral. It's for me, it's the very thing that's driving all the work that we're doing all the time. So it's very interesting also if you look at the literature of kind of in the human performance field and leadership development field. You'll see there's a number of things that are really not changing much in the world with the sort of research base we've had. Who works in a large organization? Can I just see a show of hands? Who works in a larger organization? So about half. Okay. And who would like? Who's involved in? Let me ask this question: Who would like to have better leaders? Anyone like to have better leaders out of those people? Okay. So you found that funny. Who knows how to find better leaders? Who knows how to find or create better leaders? Does anyone here know how to find? Oh, we've got one person. Excellent. I'll talk to you after, if you could please tell me. I've asked that question of quite a few thousand people now, and no one knows how to find or create better leaders. And part of the reason for that is we actually don't know what goes on in the act of leadership. There are 60,000 books about leadership. No one knows really what happens, and it's all sort of kept as this mystery. Well, actually, leadership is the art of influencing people nowadays, mostly through conversation. And there's a lot we know, actually, about leadership from the brain perspective, and most of it's very new, and I'll share some of that. So I think the research can help us with that. Also, management, a slightly different task. In organizations, increasing engagement, we're not getting much better at that. And this is a surprising one. Leading change, we're not getting better at leading change. It's not something we're improving at as a society. And in fact, here's some really stark data. Some really stark data from McKinsey over the last 20 years or so. You've got the percentage of change initiatives that succeed since 1995. Isn't that amazing? The percentage of change initiatives that actually succeed. It's very, very few. So we're not getting better at this. And so I head up an institute called the Neuroleadership Institute, as I mentioned, and we have an annual conference and a journal and an educational program. It's a bit like the Financial Planning Institute. We educate people, but we educate about the brain and about research relating to leadership. And the field for us is made up of the neuroscience of these four things. The neuroscience of making decisions and solving problems. So what goes on when you're trying to work out which product to present to this client? Staying cool under pressure. How do we deal with a difficult employee conversation? How do we manage our emotions and their emotions in those situations? So the neuroscience of how do we work together better, and the neuroscience of how do we create change. And so that's the field overall. And what we're finding with the research is that it helps people to develop. Having a brain science, having a hard science, helps people think about intangibles much more easily. So what I want to share with you today is 4 surprises. The brain is the most complex thing in the universe. It really is, and I'm really not going to try and explain the whole thing to you. What I'm going to do in the less than an hour we have is I'm going to talk to you about the big surprises emerging out of the research that hopefully will be relevant to you in the role that you have. So the rational is overrated. We have emotions backwards. Social issues of primary attention changes the brain. Let's have a look at this. Okay, can we do a little experiment? Can we do there won't be any brain scanning or pain involved, hopefully, not too much. So I'll call out a question. You guys know numbers, right? So let's do some math. I'll call out a question. Just call out an answer as a group. Ready? What is 2 plus 2? What is 4 plus 4? Still a lot of people I can't hear. 8 plus 8? Still an easy one. 10 plus 10? 20 plus 20? 40 plus 40? 50 plus 50? 56 plus 79? Why is that funny? You guys are financial planners, right? You know numbers? Why is that funny? All right, let's try something else. We're just talking about 4 digits. This isn't difficult. This is just 4 digits, right? 56 multiplied by 79. No? Okay. So there's something really, really important in the difference between those 3 sets of activities. The first activity is 2 plus 2, 4 plus 4. What's that about? That's stuff you've done over and over. Your brain is excellent at doing things over and over and codifying how you deliver a task, how you execute a task. It uses a region deep in the brain called the basal ganglia that you drive with, that you write with, that you speak with, that you walk with. This region is, fantastically efficient. Have you ever had that experience of you're driving and on a route that you use a lot, and you suddenly realize that you've been not present for some minutes, and yet you actually are quite safe and seem to have been driving quite normally? Isn't that very, very spooky the first time it happens? It turns out you're actually driving very safely if you're not that focused consciously. And in fact, consciously focusing on driving is very, very dangerous. That's what happens when you first learn to drive. You know, the white knuckles and every single thing is in your mind and you're trying to process it all at once. That's actually the dangerous thing. But we have this backward, right? We have this backward. We think that the rational is everything, but here's the insight. the resources that you have, the cognitive resources, the neural resources, they live here, right? They live here in the prefrontal cortex, which is about that thick, about 6 business cards thick. It's tiny, just here. The resources for just doing math live here. In particular, for adding up 56 and 79, you've got to actually activate this region, and in fact, the whole brain out of this region. You activate this region, and you've got to create a map right across the whole brain. Now, here's the point. The amount of space and resource you have for activating rational, conscious processes is excruciatingly small compared to the rest of the brain. You know, we think we're rational, but actually the resources for rational things like, adding up 4 digits is about a cubic meter compared to the irrational resources or the non-conscious resources, the other stuff. That stuff is the Milky Way by comparison. The Milky Way compared to a cubic meter. So we think we're really, really rational. If only people would be more rational. We're not even 1% rational. We're not even 0.01% rational. The number actually is ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense when you see how rational we actually are. There are literally about 2 million environmental stimuli being processed per second by the non-conscious, and there's about 30 or 40 processed consciously by the brain. So we think that the rational is really, really important, but it turns out that we max out at adding up 4 digits. Think about that. We max out our capacity to do anything new at adding up 4 digits, and we come to a full stop at multiplying 4 digits, right? Now think about the average business decision you have to make every day. Is it more complicated than adding up 4 digits? It is, right? It's much more complicated. So we do things that way we've always done, and it's really hard to change. It's really hard to see things fresh. So when you're trying to influence someone, you're trying to get a client to look at this whole new product, look at this whole new way of investing, right? You're dealing with someone where the lights are on, but no one's really home. They just don't really want to have to do anything differently. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt as much as me saying to you, I want you to add up 56 and 79. They're just going to go, oh, as you did. So we have to respect that, right? We love to just do things the same way over and over. But our ability to hold information in mind, this ability to use working memory is when we work on things. This capacity is extremely limited, and it's much, much more limited than anyone respects. So as you try to influence people, you want to recognize that we really must work with this limited conscious processing, this limited rational resource. So next time you think people are irrational, just realize they're just being absolutely human. That's exactly how we are.